Welcome to Legends with Bevo. Thanks to the Holdy Hotel, Coopers and Anytime Fitness Glenelg.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Live Legends with Bevo here at the Holdy Hotel. And what a treat we've got tonight. We're joined by the SANFL Games record holder, 448 games with the mighty Glenelg Football Club. Also played 19 games of state footy, three-time premiership player, 73, 85 and 86, and also a three-time best and fairest. There's not much this guy hasn't done. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Peter Super Carey. Now, Super, let's just start on a bit of a sour note for me. I'm a big Port Adelaide Magpies and Power fan, and I've got to talk about last year's grand final because your Bays knocked off my beloved Magpies, but credit to them, they were just the best team all year and they deserved a win. What was it like to break that 33-year premiership drought? And, you know, when that final siren went, what was that feeling like? And perhaps tell us about some of the guys who led the grand finals after-match celebrations.
Yeah, Bevo, you said it was a sour note. It was certainly fantastic for me and the Glenelg Footy Club. And beating Port in the grand final was just that extra special as well. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, we've only beaten two sides in grand finals, and that's North Adelaide and Port. So that was our second win against Port. We actually knocked them off in 1934 as well. So two grand final premierships against Port's pretty special, and it was great. As you said, we had a fantastic year last year. I think we were the best side all year, and to go out and knock Port off at Adelaide Oval in the grand final was very special.
And you've got to talk about the grand final celebrations, the aftermatch celebrations, because they must have been pretty crazy on that Sunday night down at the Bay. And I'm guessing Maxi Proud might have been one of the ones that liked to have a bit of fun and some of the other lads as well.
Everyone was having fun. We had a dinner at Marion Hotel first, and then we came to the club about 9:30. And to see the amount of Glenelg supporters was here, it was just fantastic, and it meant so much to so many people. It was just a special night. The players certainly partied long and hard. We had functions Sunday, Monday. We did the brewery on Tuesday, which was fantastic. So just a wonderful time for all the players and everyone involved at Glenelg.
I do have to say congratulations, you were the best team on the day, so well done. And I think Port's won enough premierships over the years. We had to share a few with you guys as well sometime. But obviously this year's been a very interesting year with the COVID situation, and you've actually taken over as the president of the Glenelg Footy Club. Nick Chidwitten previously before that, so what is it like being the president, and how's this year going in these uncertain times?
Yeah, it probably wasn't the ideal time to take over as president. It has been really tough from a number of angles. Financially, it's been hard. You know, being actually able to get our team on the park's been hard. So lots of challenges. It's great that Chiggy's still on the board, so still there to support me, which has been great. It's just we're so lucky to actually be playing footy. You know, there's other states, the VFL in Victoria haven't got off the ground, so we've been very fortunate. We've got a 14-week competition, finals. So, you know, really special. It's you know, everything's been incredibly strange. You know, we can have crowds of 3,000 at Glenelg Oval now. We've got to be very careful with all the COVID restrictions, but as I said, it's just great to be out there watching footy again.
And this year's season, obviously, at this point, lost last week to the Eagles by 78 points, but you've shown some good signs. Obviously, haven't sort of had that consistency you had last year. What do you think the Bays need to do to improve to potentially set up another or a back-to-back premiership chance this year?
You have to mention the 78 points. Yeah, it was very disappointing. We'd certainly played reasonably well the few weeks before that. We'd beaten North Adelaide and then beaten Westies really comfortably. So I was expecting at least a competitive effort against the Eagles. They have been the best side all year, so we always knew it was going to be tough. But to get blown away the way we did, they were 4 goals up at quarter time, we were kicking with a 5-goal breeze, so the game was virtually over at quarter time, which was really disappointing. We're going to really see the character of the boys to see whether they can come out. We've got come out this week. We've got Central Districts at ACH Stadium on Saturday, and we need to really come back strongly this week. If we beat Centrals, we're reasonably assured of getting a place in the finals. And then I think it's anyone's game. Once you get into the finals, you know, our record at Adelaide Oval has been very good this year and was good last year. So I think we're still in with a chance, but certainly the Eagles are the favourites to win.
And you mentioned the Doggies. They've actually been playing some pretty good footy. Obviously knocked off Norwood the other week. And it just goes to show, even West Adelaide knocked off Bays earlier on the year. So it's such an even competition, which is wonderful. But you have to watch out for the Doggies, though. That's going to be a good clash. Yeah,
look, the competition's been great this year. I think there's only there's 5 sides capable of winning the premiership. Norwood are just sitting outside the 5. They've got a big game against South this weekend. If they happen to knock South off at Noarlunga, they're back in the hunt to be in the finals. Centrals have played some good games. We did beat them out at Elizabeth reasonably easily earlier in the year, so we're expecting that we should be able to beat Centrals at home.
And let's talk about your illustrious career. 448 games, which is a SANFL games record, unbelievable stuff. Tell us all about the journey, the Peter Super Carey journey, and where it all began, and obviously going on to play for the Bays and everything.
Yeah, it's probably a fairly long story. I spent most of my junior footy life in Warrnambool in Victoria, so we moved there from England when I was 6. So I had 8 years playing footy in Warrnambool. Had a reasonable amount of success there in the junior grades, and then our family moved to Adelaide when I was 15. Played a couple of years of Colts footy or under 17s footy for Glenelg. Didn't have high expectations of where I'd finish with footy, but you know, managed to work my way through the grades from under 17s to under 19s. Played a few reserves games, and you know, suddenly I got a phone call on a Thursday night at 9 o'clock saying I was in the league side, and that was after only training for about 20 minutes with the league side. I'd only been training with the reserves, and it's quite, looking back now, fascinating. I hadn't met one of the league players that I played with on the first game. My first game was at Elizabeth against Central Districts, and I hadn't met one of the players.
Unbelievable, what a story. And obviously we spoke about the Port Glenelg rivalry before, and you know, it's probably not quite as brutal as it was back in the day, but why was there so much hatred between Port and the Bays, and you know, what was it like playing in those games when the old Granger versus Corns days?
Bevo, I don't think anyone likes Port Adelaide, do they? Unless you barrack for them. Although it was such a great side, they had a lot of success. People liked to dislike them. We did have some brutal games against Port over the years. Certainly, you know, David Granger on a few occasions upset a number of the Glenelg players. You know, I still remember when he hit Neville Caldwell off the ball. And Neville took a couple of years to recover from that, so they were quite spiteful games, and we had a fair share of success in the period that I played, but not in grand finals. So I wasn't lucky enough to beat Port in the grand final, but I would have loved that. But there was, you know, as I said, there was a dislike by most clubs of Port Adelaide because they were so successful. So a lot of us were fairly envious of the success they had. They've been a great footy club, obviously the leading footy club in South Australia for a number of years, so you've got to give them that credit, but I still love beating them.
You know, it's amazing how many people you hear saying the same kind of thing, but you know, this year we've seen no Port Adelaide Magpies or no Crows in the SANFL, and it's amazing how many people have actually said that they're actually missing having Port Adelaide in the SANFL. It's not the same kind of SANFL without the Port Magpies in there as much as you hate them. You know, tell us more about that, Super.
Bevo, there are a few people that would actually argue about Port being in the SANFL. I think they're an important part of the SANFL. It's been an interesting competition this year without them. And I think it's still been a very competitive competition without Port and the Crows. They'll be back next year, so we'll see how they go. They'll be probably playing with a reduced AFL list, so it'll make it harder for them to be competitive in the SANFL. Last year they finished second and third, which was the best finish for both clubs in a number of years. So Port have been around the place a couple of times, Crows haven't been that successful. So I do honestly think they add something to the competition. I think our players, for instance, aspire to do well against both the Crows and Magpies. So it'll be great to have them back next year.
Yeah, I've actually interviewed Maxi Proud last year, and he said the same kind of thing. Like, he loves playing against his AFL listed players because it really gives him a good challenge as well.
Oh, absolutely. We played the Crows at Glenelg last year, and we had Sam Jacobs, Bryce Gibbs, Eddie Betts, Richard Douglas and someone else all playing for the Crows, and I reckon one of those players was probably getting more money than our whole playing list, so that was quite interesting, and we knocked them off as well, which was quite pleasant.
Yeah, it's a good effort there. And the difference between modern footy and footy back in the day, obviously it's not quite as brutal now as what it was back in those days, but how do you find modern footy, Super, in terms of the SANFL and the AFL? Because talking to a lot of ex-players recently, they find it hard to watch. Kim Costa actually said the other week he finds it hard to watch.
Yeah, I must admit I still enjoy going to the local footy. I still enjoy watching the SANFL. From my humble opinion, I think the AFL is overcoached now. I think the lack of scoring doesn't make it as much fun to watch, and it'd be great to see. I know they've spoken about a number of ways they can encourage teams to kick more goals. So it's really disappointing. We had Channel 7 are doing something on the day we kicked 49 goals, and Central's kicked 11 goals on that day, so we had 60 goals kicked in one day, and we're lucky now that 11 goals that Central's kicked would win most games in the AFL now. So I think there's something they need to do is to get more scoring. I think everyone loves people kicking goals. We had a number of years in both VFL, AFL and the SANFL where full forwards were kicking 100 goals, which people loved coming to watch these people kick 100 goals. And I don't think there's going to be a full forward kick 100 goals ever again in the AFL.
Well, let's hope that changes, because we all love the high scores, like you said. So, and in terms of going back to your career as well, was there ever any temptation to go across to Victoria, and any clubs sort of reach out to you and tell you to come across and play in the VFL as it was back in those days?
I actually signed with the Melbourne Footy Club when I was 19 years old, and for a number of reasons I didn't get across there. Then a few years later, St Kilda were chasing me to go and play at St Kilda as well, but again for various reasons, I enjoyed playing at Glenelg. They were a successful side. I was being well paid. I enjoyed the environment. I really didn't feel like shifting again back to Melbourne to play. Who knows what would have happened? But as I said, I had a marvellous career at Glenelg. I wouldn't change it for anything. So. I might have missed the opportunity to play in the VFL, but I'm not really regretting it.
And 19 games of state footy, I mentioned at the start as well. Pretty amazing achievement. Talk to us through some of the players that you played with and against, some of the best ones.
And that's probably one of the reasons it wasn't such a big deal to go to Victoria. I did get to play against guys like Gary Dempsey, Brownlow medalist, Peter Moore, another dual Brownlow medalist. So I was playing against the best players in Australia. I had the opportunity to do that, particularly when we played against Victoria. Also Western Australia had Graham Moss running around and Steve Michaels running around. So I always felt that I was playing against the best, so I didn't actually have to go to Melbourne to play against the best. But they had some fabulous players. We had some great contests. Probably still regret I didn't play in a winning game against Victoria. We came close a couple of times, we didn't do it. So a bit of a regret, but some great games, and really enjoyed the competition against those great players.
And who are some of the funniest teammates you played with at the Bays and state footy?
Funniest. Steve Highwood's a great mate of mine, and he's the best joke teller I know. We had Mad Dog Gerald Rady, who I went to school with. He was incredibly funny, and some of the things he got up to, I can't really repeat tonight, but that was good. Yeah, so they were probably the funniest guys that I played with. But I just sort of made so many great mates at Glenelg, over the 18 years I played there, and still keep in contact with them all. So that's a great thing about footy.
Yeah, it's wonderful, Super. Well, before I officially end tonight, is there anyone that has any questions to the great man out there? Is it? Pass the microphone there, Gammon.
G'day Peter, just wondering, two-part question. Firstly, can you explain the AFL rules in terms of ruck infringements? And the second part is that it intrigues me that with some outstanding ruckmen like Brodie Grundy and Nick McNui, that they keep on just dropping the ball with their feet. Why don't they use their athleticism and push it out wide and vary their skills as you did as a player for the Bays?
In answer to the first part of that question, I get really confused with how the umpires umpire ruck infringements. I tend to think let the ruckman do it because the umpires don't really know what's going on. There's very few ruckmen that are 6'7" and are built like ruckmen. So let them go. They try and interpret what's going on, and they're wrong a lot of the time. In terms of knocking the ball long, I sort of perhaps disagree that like the really classy ruckmen like Nat Nui and Gawn and Brodie Grundy do set up pretty well in centre bounces, and they are trying to use the ball. It's not easy getting the ball out wide and long when it's a very competitive centre bounce. So the fact that they've got those setups, and I do admire particularly the three ruckmen the two ruckmen you mentioned. I'd throw Maxi Gawn in that as well because I think he's really talented as well. I love to see the way they set up and the way they use the people in that centre bounce. Just remember they do a hell of a lot of homework on everything that goes on. So every club knows every move every other club makes. So it makes it particularly hard to keep coming up with different strategies in the centre bounce.
Great question. Anyone else have any questions for Super?
There's a young Richmond supporter over there, I reckon.
How old were you when you first started playing?
Good question. I was 17 years old when I played my first game for Glenelg. Still going to Seacombe High School, and very lucky to get an opportunity at 17 years of age.
Great question, mate. Any others? No. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the wonderful Peter Super Carey.
Thank you.
Thanks to you guys for coming along tonight and supporting this as well. Check out Legends with Bevo on Facebook and all the socials if you want to give it a follow. And we'll put up this interview in the next couple of weeks as well. So thanks again. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
that was
buddy.
great.
Yeah,
Cheers, mate.
thanks, mate.